Just starting live here for AEW Dynamite. We got Kenny Omega and Brian Cage. I am so excited to do this with you guys. It's super fun, and let me get YouTube up and running. I'm so excited. All right, we're still live. Trying to get this going over on YouTube. I'm still a noob at this, guy, so please forgive me. All right. I don't know what's going on here. Hopefully, we're all right. See if we're going live on. Nope, that was Collision. let's hope this works. If it doesn't, then we'll figure it out later. All right, AW. I'm super excited for this. It is so nice having Kenny Omega back. I don't know how I feel about Brian Cage actually going full Wolverine with his look. And that was an interesting move. Just like grabbed his face. Ooh. What an interesting setup, right? Where they put the ring in the angle. You know, people are knocking AEW, right? Because attendance hasn't been as high, but they're moving to smaller venues. And this setup just looks so much better, right? It's better acoustics for an environment like this. So it's 1,500, 2,000 people in a 2,000 person arena sounds and looks way better than that much in like a 10,000 person arena. I also love the ramp setup like this. Kind of reminds me of a lot of the stuff they did during the pandemic, which is when AEW was probably at its best. All right, time to get up ChatGPT. Oh, Kenny Omega's the best. You know, Gabe Kidd and David Finlay are going to be. No way, kicks out. There we go. Good win. Good win. Is Lance Archer going to get in here and attack him? Yeah, part of me wonders if like Tom Callis' scar is if they use like makeup on it. Oh, here we go. Here comes Omega. Oh, that's awesome. Oh. Now you got to build a storyline here, right? Like, talk about why they're getting together, why they're doing this. Oh, it's a match I want to see, him and Takeshita. I still can't get over years ago when MJF called Takeshita take a shitta. I gotta say something like, how much does how much is he eating? Because he's gotten so much bigger, Fletcher, since he's gotten to AEW. Like, he's just got to be eating everything and just lifting weights like a madman. I mean, granted, he's really young, but I don't know why. I just want to see AJ Styles join these two guys and be a trios, right? Just then one of them get a singles title somewhere, and then you set up a triple threat, right, to break the faction up. Because I just think that'd be so fun, right? Just like three generations of the greatest workers: Osprey, Omega, and Styles. And if you want to throw in there Kyle Fletcher for a fatal four way to enter the fourth generation, be my guest. Be my guest. All right. What do we got here? What a great way to like this. That was the aesthetics, the cinematography on that was awesome. Okay, so a lot of people are angry about this, right? The collision and the fact that the learning tree is figuring out with, or is teaming with Death Riders, and I think there's a solution to this to keep everyone happy. Rated FTR, Death Riders just obliterate the learning tree, and the only person who gets to come out looking strong is Big Bill. Protect him, and then lead to a breakup of learning tree. It needs to happen. If Jericho wants to go back to NXT, he's happy to, right? He's a legend. He helped start AEW. This isn't working. All right. So, for psychology tonight, I wanted to go over a few things, right? We can talk about a few things. Don't relate to AEW. So, and that's defense mechanism, right? These are important in terms of human behavior, and you can use it to generate emotions, right? So, the first defense mechanism that I'll talk about is repression. So repression involves unconsciously blocking unpleasant thoughts or feelings from conscious awareness, right? And so like one thing you might be able to do is take like the story of Wardlow and why you got to such a hot baby face earlier on in a few years ago. And for Wardlow, he had to repress his desires, he had to repress his anger, he had to repress his feelings just to keep MJF satisfied until he couldn't do it anymore, and then he had this huge explosion of emotion, right? Like, and you get that with repression, which is you wear it all down, you bottle it up, and then boom. Um, and people do this all the time in real life. So repression can be like sexual desires. Repression might be feelings coming up, right? Like some people have messages that they had growing up because of emotionally unavailable people, that they have to repress their own emotions and push it down just to make sure that life stays okay, right? Like say you're a little kid who has a lot of anger, and then you have like a parent who makes you feel small, and if you act on it, they'll make you feel even smaller, make you feel more powerless and helpless. So, like, that's a way that repression can work. You see that in wrestling. There was a story years ago with Big Show and the Authority and how he repressed things to manage his family's needs. So he repressed the anger, he repressed the shame, and he just did the bidding work of the Authority. So, repression is a common thing, right? You might repress your desires. Some of this times might be for religious reasons. Some of it can be to protect other aspects of yourself. Go away, Jericho. That was terrible. Oh my gosh. The hard part about the story, right, is that with Jericho being so unlikable, but not unlikable in a good way, it actually makes it feel It devalues ROH even more, which AEW has been doing. They've been devaluing. Man, Ricochet is so over his heel. People hate him. Man, he's pissing these people off. Prince Nana's the greatest. Man, I love this chain, right? Like it reminds me of Quentin Rampage Jackson back in the day in the UFC. This is such a great look. Like so violent. Oh, love this storytelling. You can't get your payoff right now. Let Ricochet run and get out of there. Slow the pace down of the stories. We know this match and the story is a banger. Just keep it going. I love that too, right? Like that Swerve is taking it slow there. Like he's not chasing him. Makes me feel like he's gonna break him down in like a super methodical way. Swerve is like his in ring psychology is so good. Like he's not like the worker of Osprey, but like he knows how to get a reaction and understands like these things probably better than anyone right now in AEW. I hope everyone's doing all right tonight. You know, there's probably some level of projection, but it's winter here in Minnesota. It's been freezing cold. That could be really hard on a lot of people. I don't know where you're from. If you feel free to leave it in the comments. But I just hope you're doing all right. Life can be really hard, so I hope you're doing all right today. I heard that Megan Bain is going to be interested tonight. I love that. And my fear is just build stories, right? Um, and you don't need to do these stories like WWE. Just tell some story. In-ring product is infinitely better in AEW. If you just improve the storytelling a little bit, I feel like that'll go a long way just in the quality of the product. Because nothing touches an AEW pay-per-view. Nothing touches AEW matches. You give half an hour to the top 10 wrestlers in AEW versus the top 10 in WWE. AEW wins every time. Wouldn't it be interesting if Mark Briscoe becomes kind of like manager, third member, private party, kind of doing for them what Matt Hardy was trying to do, right? But like in a different place because we're talking about two different kind of iconic like tag teams. Love the Punisher logo on MVP. Is the conglomeration even a thing anymore? He's not wearing anything. He's representing, the Briscoes. Oh, Kyle, or O'Reilly's in Undisputed Kingdom. Man, Benjamin and Lashley are such special athletes. I wonder what's going on with Corey Graves, right? Like, if Corey Graves is done with WWE, I imagine this storyline. I don't feel like they would tolerate this. But if this is actually legit and real, I'd imagine he'd want to come and do something like AEW, whether it's in the booth or whether it's as a wrestler. All right, I'll get back to some Psycho Ed while we're in the waiting, right? We're in commercial break. All right, denial. Refusing to accept reality or facts to avoid emotional discomfort. How I see this in practice, right? Some I see this a lot in couples therapy, where, like, so for instance, like if a woman is married to an extremely toxic man, she'll want to stay in denial about how bad he really is because she doesn't want to leave the relationship because she may feel like there's no one else better out there for her or no one else will love her, and she doesn't want to start her life over again. So it's easier to stay in denial, right? Um, I've seen it too in other areas where people do not want to see something in themselves, right? I see people who do not want to see that how they play a victim sometimes to accept that they need to take responsibility for changing their own life because they may feel helpless or powerless. So like denial in pro wrestling, right? Like I think sometimes we feel it as wrestling fans with ownership and management, right? Like you could say it about Tony Khan, but in Vince we saw it, right? That he was in denial about how bad the product was, and he kept making excuses. Oh, the TV ratings are going down because of this. Oh, viewership is going down because of this. Attendance is going down because of this. The product is great. This is over. Daniel Bryan's really not that great, right? And so you stay in this denial. It allows you to believe your own story, and you keep making up all these other stories to stay in denial. So we see that a lot. I think in terms of like a wrestling character, like like MJF is a good one. MJF fits a lot of these things because he's so great. Like a way he might stay in denial is, or like Moxley. Moxley's in denial right now because he really thinks he's doing something good, but he's really a bad guy, right? And so he's in denial about who he really is, and sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. In the case of Moxley right now, it's not helping him get over. In the past, it did help Max get over. And so, like, that's an example of where, like, denial as a defense mechanism is good or wrong in wrestling and how it affects the wrestling business. Sorry if I grunt throughout the night, guys. I've got some back pain I'm trying to work through. I've lost over 50 pounds since October, and I'm still not fully accustomed to working out again. That was awesome. You can't completely job out the tag team. You got to give them some offense here. Like, I think the Hurt Syndicate needs to win this, but you can't completely, job out the Private Party right now. A lot of people want Hobbs to win this tonight. I think they're kind of fed up with this. It's interesting. You see the picture of Steve Borden out there. Like, I wonder if they're going to introduce him in the storyline. That's Sting's son. All right, let's get back to some more Psycho Ed. All right, more common defense mechanisms. Projection, right? Attributing one's own unacceptable feelings or thoughts to someone else. My example I give to this is from The Office all the time. There's a scene in there when Roy comes to attack Jim, and that's for having kissed Pam after they had broken up. And when he goes to hit Jim, Dwight hits him with pepper spray. And then they do one of those interviews from The Office afterwards, and they say, he says, I knew that this was going to happen someday. Someone was going to break into our office and cause us harm. And the end of the episode is Dwight taking weapons all over the building outside and giving them to HR. Right? He views people as threats, as people who are unsafe. And so, yeah, and that's because he's scared of people. So he's putting his fear of people onto people, and then is preparing himself by planting weapons around. So, like, an example of this is, someone who is being hostile will accuse other people of being hostile. And you see projection a lot onto crowds, right? Heels do it all the time. They themselves, grandiosity, which is a form of shame, will cause them to lash out at the crowd and call them, pathetic marks, or, I will not accept this from somebody in the town of Cleveland or Pittsburgh. My wife just got home. Man. Right? So, more cases of projection, right? Like, um, even this, right? Like, once again, grandiosity. Moxley believes that there's only one form of wrestling that actually matters. Punk was this way, and it feels like real life. But and so in that grandiosity, shame again. I can explain more about that another time. But um, you then start to devalue others in the process of maintaining your grandiosity, and which is what Moxley is doing right now to the other wrestlers, right? There's only one form of wrestling which is acceptable. His way, he's going to elevate and cause that. We got a double J match, or what's going on? I'm having a hard time. Is this the best use of MJF right now? I'm not sure. This was called an emotional flashback, an excessive response to something happening that didn't require that level of response. Ooh. MJF's the best. It's almost like Punk and Jeff Hardy. Oh, Kurt Angle drop. Oh, uh, Max is destroying him. MJF has like a wonderful way of selling the stuff and just making you believe that like he's actually internalizing these things. MJF is so good to have him back. This is MJF is so good, so good. And there's a lot of negative feelings about like that segment on Twitter. I'm looking it up, and I mean, I didn't think it was that bad. I think what's hard is like for a guy who's as great as MJF, it's hard to see the value in this. It's hard to believe it, right? Because MJF is not even in his prime, and he's already, I feel like, accomplished so much. And you get a guy who's kind of washed up, and it's kind of hard to believe that. So, all right, guys, my wife just got home. I'm gonna quick say hi to her. There's something that was kind of sticky. I don't know. I was just trying to leak away and get it out. So, I had some chicken, some of the beef, some of the chicken. Oh, you know what? Okay, but you know what I did was I moved him all down now. So I'll be done at two. I'll be good. All right, let's get back to some psycho ed. All right, so displacement, redirecting our emotions or impulses from the original source to a safer target. An example of this would be I had a bad day at work, and I'm going to take it out on my wife rather than who I'm actually angry at. And so, an example of this in wrestling, right, would be um, would be like um, um, like push like Vince, I think, pushed people um, because he thought he was right and wanted to prove that he was right rather than actually listening, right? And so he was angry um, at the audience because they were not liking his product, and so decided to push it anywhere to prove this narrative, like I know what I'm talking about and you don't, right? And obviously, sometimes wrestling fans aren't right. I'm not right. I don't know this business as much as everyone else. But sometimes we are right, and we like what we like, and we kind of get around that. We universally agree, right? Bryan Danielson, right? Sami Zayn. Um, so, yeah. So, what's really cool is like I've had like 24 people watching on Twitter tonight. So if you're watching on Twitter, I just want to say thank you, and I really hope you're doing all right. Um, yeah. So, um, other thing too, right, is like we see this as a wrestler getting mad because he's getting booed, right, and so he decides to take it out. You can see that with Ricochet right now. He's not happy with being booed, and so he's taking it out on Swerve. That's kind of maybe an example of this as a defense mechanism of displacement. Rationalization, justifying behaviors or feelings with logical but false reasons to avoid the true explanation, right? And so let's go back to Moxley. Moxley is justifying his behaviors or feelings um, to avoid the fact that he's a heel, but actually thinks he's a good guy, right? And so he rationalizes things he does because he's got pure motives. Um, and so saying you didn't get a job because you didn't really want it rather than acknowledging you were unprepared, right? People do this all the time where they try to justify things and they want to rationalize it away. So like that's an example of rationalization, right? And it's like heels can do this all the time. They can rationalize their behavior to not acknowledge something. Um, a lot of this you actually see, right, is not, you don't actually see a lot of this behavior in good guys. Good guys and the baby faces, they tend to be more honest to themselves. They need to do something a little bit different with Hook here. I'll tell you what, the person I really want to get over like around this storyline is actually Nick Wayne. Nick Wayne has grown a lot over the past year, but I don't feel like it's properly been told. And I don't know if you need to do another Darby Allin story. Like maybe um, Darby enters and there's a churn of to cost Christian Cage the championship because he wants to be his own guy and help Darby out again. Could be an interesting way to work through it, but He has grown so much. Yeah, when's Samoa Joe gonna come back? Ricky Starks? It's a perfect spot for Ricky Starks. Oh, Samoa Joe. Okay. That works for me. I mean, Joe would kill all these guys. Joe's the best. Great addition back, right? Like, I don't care what Samoa Joe does, he does it awesome. His no cells are like, and just like letting people do the odd things is awesome. Ooh, Shibata too. Oh, we got here? We got somebody in the chat. Okay, back to psycho ed. Wow, my ADHD is going mad. All right, regression. Next defense mechanism, reverting to behaviors from earlier stage of development to cope with stress. Right? Once again, MJF. He throws these tantrums all the time when things don't get the way. People interrupt him. Tonight, throws a tantrum, right? People don't acknowledge he's a generational talent. Tantrum. He does the hypocritical things hypocritical that he would do that other people do to him. Tantrum, right? And it's like he is a man child, and he's so good at it. And like even like the Miz is someone who's good at this. Like the Miz can be like so kind of like childishly condescending. But even too, like maybe the best version of face in this, right? Because we haven't gotten to a lot of defense mechanisms face, is R-Truth, in that like John Cena, like it's his childhood hero, even though he's older, or Little Jimmy, right? Like that would be something in a regression. You go back to having like a childhood friend. That's a great example of a defense mechanism in regression. So, yeah. What do you guys think of the show tonight? Like, I see a lot of people are negative on it, but like, I don't think it's amazing, but I think it's good. I think that's hard, right? Uh, is that like some people are so just negative towards AEW. It's the cool thing to hate. I feel like it's like Creed and Nickelback. And I hope like someday we can look back on it like we do with Creed now and say, yeah, so wasn't that bad. All right, I'll keep going since we got about half an hour left. I want to make sure I hit them. So, reaction formation, acting in a way opposite to one's unacceptable impulse or feelings. So, treating someone you dislike with excessive kindness. Last week that was MJF with Jeff Jarrett. Guy can't stand him, and yet here he is acting like he likes him. I would love a Dustin Rhodes heel turn with Sammy Guevara heel here. May. She's so witty and cunning. Oh, oh, man. Statlander and Megan Bain make Jamie Hayter look small, and she's not small. Wow. Julia Hart. All right, more psychoed. All right. Sublimation, channeling unacceptable impulses into socially acceptable or productive activities, redirecting anger into vigorous exercise or creative work. Right? It's like um, this could be like an addict replacing one addiction with another addiction, right? Um, Maybe like one way to do this, right, is like MJF again, right? The King at the beginning, right? Unacceptable impulses, helping Cody Rhodes, um, and productive activities, right? And it's like even MJF, right? Naturally a heel, um, is our scumbag, but deep down inside, he's a bad dude, and it's just now showing that again, right? And so, like, that could be actually of sublimation, right? Thinking about replacing something negative and trying to make it positive, but not really attending to the positive or the negative thing, right? It's like in like sobriety too, they can call it being a dry drunk. It's like I'll just stay busy, but not actually heal the things that are causing me to want to drink. And so, like, I might go and help with charity, or might go and work, right, which are socially acceptable activities, but they're not actually attending to it. So, intellectualization, focusing on logical or factual details to distance oneself from emotional aspects. After a breakup, someone might focus on the statistical likelihood of finding a new partner rather than addressing their feelings. Um, right? And so, like, if you think about it too, right? Someone is like this could be um, like Hangman Adam Page. Um, that he doesn't actually address the feelings of being hurt, and so he focuses on something different and he can intellectualize why he hates Swerve and why it's okay, and not face the fact that, like, the shame that he feels, and so he turns it in to something, right? The shame he feels from not protecting and caring for his family, distances himself from that, and intellectualizes and rationalizes why it's okay that he has become who he has become. Rather than addressing the shame, he finds a different focus. So, um, yeah. What's everyone doing tonight? Like, I keep asking that, but I hope everyone's okay. I feel like I'm a little bit worried about the world right now. I feel like a lot of things are kind of going crazy. Um, you know, finances, economics, political changes, huge events happening in the world, chaos. I hope today that, like, all this stuff in the Middle East is settled with, and we don't have that, like, there's actual a season of peace. Hard part is like, once again, is um, I hope that they actually find a way to reconcile and heal from this, rather than actually just keep sweeping it under the rug and act like they don't hate each other. Right. Oh, I love that move by Willow. I'm glad to see they're giving Megan Bayne a lot. Okay, so this is like going defense mechanisms, right? This is regression. Tony Storm story. I love Harley Cameron. Man, that's crazy. All right, go back to some psycho ed. Okay, compensation, overemphasizing one area of life makes up deficiencies in others, right? Excelling at work to counteract feelings of inadequacy in personal relationships. Sean Silver is like the best at this, like in AEW. I think he's so small, but he tries to pretend that he's so big. Right, I think that's hilarious. Um, right, and compensation even too. Right, like heel does. Heel can do this too. Right, it's like they compensate for the fact that they feel small, that no one loves them by going to be over the top and then trying to humiliate people. You feel small, so you become muscular. Right, it's like people like to joke about people overcompensating for their manhood, and I think you definitely see a lot of this in wrestling. Undoing, trying to reverse or undo a thought or behavior that feels unacceptable. Giving someone extravagant a gift after treating them poorly, right? Um, like this time, I think like WrestleMania 30 was like trying to undo the fact that Danielson was so over, and they like had to create this huge storyline. Even like last year, right, with Cody, undoing the fact that no one wanted The Rock, and then they give him all these big things to compensate for the fact that like the fans didn't want The Rock to win because they knew they just dicked over Cody. So like that's like an example of like undoing both in the professional world but also in storyline. Um, another one, identification, adopting the characteristics of another person or group to cope with feelings of inadequacy or threat. Um, Damien Sandow, great example of this, right? When he was Mizdow. Um, um, Part of me wonders too, right? Like this identification after um, Hurt Syndicate punked Ricochet. Is he now kind of doing this, right? Like he's trying to act like the Hurt Syndicate for the fact that they punked him and that's how they would act. That one's not like fully worked out yet, but like I wonder. All right, I think we're getting back to like the start. So, all right, before we start, I'll get into some splitting. Viewing people or situations as entirely good or entirely bad with no middle ground. Idealizing someone one day and completely devaluing them next, right? Once again, Max. He goes from being our scumbag to a scumbag, right? Like he went from being a fan favorite to now saying they're worthless and turn their back on him. It's an all or nothing kind of way of thinking. You see splitting in people with all or nothing traits in their thought process. You see this a lot in like people with personality disorders, but people without personality disorders do it too. Like most commonly, you see this in like narcissists and people with borderline personality. You go from being worshipped to all of a sudden being the worst person in the world. All right. Fantasy, escaping reality by retreating into an idealized world in one's imagination. Um, Daydreaming about a perfect life to avoid addressing real life challenges. Now, I kind of wonder about like Tony Storm with this, right? Is Tony Storm in some type of fantasy disassociating back? We talked about the regression earlier. And two, like I also feel like this is part of the Jeff Jarrett story is like he can't realistically become AEW World Champion, like some fantasy of his, and so he's daydreaming about this to avoid the fact that it's kind of washed up or at least old. All right, I'm done for the night on the defense mechanisms. We'll just watch AEW now. A lot of people on social media have been calling for Hobbs to win this. I think they're just kind of at this desperate moment where they want this storyline of the Death Riders to end. I can't see it happening tonight because this is Cincinnati. And that is where Moxley's from. But this is so short. Like, it is 8:51. Like, are you going to have, like, a 12-minute match? Like, that's not really giving Hobbs a fair shake. So I'm guessing some type of shenanigans is going to happen with the Death Riders. Oh, you got to book Hobbs strong in this match. People really do like him and adore him. Oof. Ooh. I love the no cells. You know, it's been awesome too. Like with Hobbs, is like, oh, is like he is like a AEW guy, right? Like he appreciates AEW. Um, you know, a lot of people this week are talking about how like Malachi Black is gone, and it doesn't sound like from some of the dirt sheets, however accurate they are, like that he was much of a guy that was loved backstage, and you know, just like in like workplace happiness. I mean, they've shown that two things make people happy at work. One, you're paid fairly, and the second one is that you enjoy your coworkers. And I have to believe too, right? Like if you don't like being in the ring with somebody and you don't like the people around, you're probably not going to perform at your best. Now, some people are just amazing regardless, right? Like Michael Jordan looked for reasons to hate people, um, but this is scripted, so it'd be nice to have people in there that you could trust, right? That you know will take care of you, that care about your well-being. It's kind of like the ideal place to be. So you know, I've enjoyed this episode of AEW. I'm I don't think it's the best TV I've ever seen, but it's pretty good. And you know, I'm really like just really happy to see how much Max seems to be helping out viewership. You know, sometimes people are willing to watch more if you remove barriers, and for some of them, paying $60 a month is a barrier, or $100, right, for cable TV. So sometimes it's just, you know, I'm glad for AEW they're doing this. I'm glad that Max is doing this. Remove some barriers, allow some more people to watch and enjoy the product, which is only good for sustainability, right? One of the things I've been impressed with in sports is like the owners of the Phoenix Suns, who are interested in potentially buying the Minnesota Twins, where I'm from, and they've made all of the games for the Phoenix Suns on local television, and it's really helping just viewership and getting people into the building because you're building a more passionate fan base. So I hope like that this is the case as well for AEW, like just removing some barriers to being able to watch it. That it allows for a new and more passionate fan base. It's got to be ending soon. Oh, They got to give Marina Shafir a match sometime. She can't just be out here and like assaulting dudes and then not really developing any story or characters, like storylines for her. And I don't know if they're waiting for, you know, um, Beth Phoenix to wrestle with her because of the story with Edge and Copeland. And it's kind of how I see this ending tonight, right? Is Rated FTR coming out to help Hobbs after some type of DQ. Oh, that was cool. Do not let him tap. Oh, oh. Man, they're giving Hobbs a lot. And I'm here for it. Oh, oh. Man, they're giving Hobbs a lot. Love it. That's it. Oh! It's like the Danielson ending where he doesn't quit. Kind of protects him in some way. Wouldn't mind like a Moxley, like a Ben Stiller moment from Dodgeball. No one makes me bleed my own blood. Here comes Raid FTR. Maybe Jay White too. Mm. Would love just the switchblade sword sound. Oh, a little bit late. A little late. Not fully in love with that ending, but I'm glad they give Hop so much because like he deserves good and like this should lead to a good comeback and how he come and destroy the Death Riders. Like hopefully, he's over. So they need to do something with him. Anyways, that ends tonight's live stream. We talked defense mechanisms. Once again, we covered everything from repression, denial, projection, displacement, rationalization, regression, reaction, formation, sublimation, intellectualization, compensation, undoing, identification, splitting, and fantasy. That's a lot. Um, and for everyone who joined in the show, like really grateful that you willing to give me your time. There's, I think, almost like 40 people on Twitter watched. That's pretty cool. And I'm just really grateful for your time. Mental health, you know, if you're struggling right now, if you're feeling suicidal, obviously call 911 or the suicide hotline. If you're needing therapy, places like Psychology Today will help you kind of navigate that. Like if you, depending on your insurance or if you need sliding fee scale. And there's also different types of therapists as well. If you ever are struggling to navigate what kind of therapist you should look for, feel free to message me on Twitter at Ringside Shrink, and I would love to help you navigate that. I can kind of help you based on your needs to tell you what type of therapy might be beneficial for you. Obviously, I don't know you, but I'll do my best to help you navigate that. So, thank you everyone for watching. Got 2 good hours in on here. Started a little bit late, and I apologize for that. Just came right from a session into here. So, thank you guys. I appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a good evening.